Hello and welcome to India's World. Today we will discuss the controversies surrounding the massive cyber spying program of United States of America and its implications for India. The largest target of this cyber spying is Iran, followed by Pakistan, Jordan and Egypt, and then comes India, making it the fifth largest target of US cyber spying. This issue has already been raised by India's National Security Advisor with the US Ambassador in India. Next week, it will also be raised in the cyber security dialogue between India and the US. What are the implications of this cyber spying for India? What does it mean for US-India relations and for Indian citizens? To discuss all this, I have with me a very distinguished panel. I have with me Ambassador Ronen, former ambassador to America. You promoted Indo-US relations to a new height, and you were the architect virtually of the India-US civil nuclear deal. We have Mr. Ajit Doval, former head of Intelligence Bureau, legendary spy master and strategic thinker. He is currently the director of the Vivekananda Foundation in New Delhi, a think tank. And my old friend, Dr. C. Rajamohan, he wears many hats. He's a strategic thinker, an academic, a newspaper columnist, and nobody knows America and US-India relations better than him. So welcome all of you to this conversation. Let me begin with you, Ambassador Sen. There seem to be three broad categories of cyber spying that have been leaked by The Guardian. One relates to mobile phone tapping, as in the Verizon case, the US mobile giant. Second is the PRISM project, which actually allows them to go into content of emails, Facebook posts, blogs, your browsing history, and all the internet giants from Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Yahoo, America Online, even Apple, they've given them access. This allows content monitoring. Verizon allowed only metadata or patterns of calls made and to who they are made and which geographical location they come from. And the third program is the Boundless Informant program, which indexes and organizes all the data they tap. So again, a pattern recognition program. Now, do all of these impact India, or should we be worried about some more than the others?
I think the fact that they have leaked out in this manner, in this detail, has undoubtedly caused a lot of red faces, a lot of embarrassment, acute embarrassment, and perhaps anger also. But very honestly, this is nothing new as far as, professions. For me as a professional diplomat and who's been involved for, 43 years in this business, it's not new. And also, you made one statement, for instance, that India is number 5. We have to remember that this is data for one month.
Month, yes.
Then you have 3 billion, pieces of information. Now, that is also, that can be a misleading kind of thing if you go just by numbers alone. But we don't, at least I don't have enough information to come to any firm conclusion, but I'm sure that we will take it up and there are appropriate forums to do that, but this is something which has been going on. It's practiced by virtually all major countries, and we take it for granted right from the time when I joined service. From any phone call or even a conversation in a room, even whether it's a hotel or in the embassy or anywhere, or even when you're walking outside, or even in a cafe, you take it for granted that there is a third party and in all communication. So I think it's only the very naive who would be surprised by it. But if there is a particular pattern which will concern us, we will always take it up, and there are appropriate channels for doing that, not just in the dialogue, but also in other forums. Yeah.
So if spying is a fact of life, Mr. Doval, why are we getting hot and bothered about what the US is doing? Even if we protest, is the US going to stop its clandestine intelligence gathering activities?
Actually, there are 3 points why we are bothered about it. One is that US has taken a position about the global commons, and the position that the cyberspace should not be used for things which can undermine the sovereign interest of any country or the privacy of the individuals. If they want to insist it on China or on any other country, they cannot be going in such a massive scale when there is no direct threat, as it has come out that there is very little terrorist-related inputs which had come during that. That is one principle of this thing on that we should be concerned. Second is that when they talk about democracy and the laws of privacy for their own citizens, they are totally unmindful of the similar laws which they might be violating in other countries. This is a violation of the Indian Information Act 2000 and the rules which had been made in 2011. Insensitivity towards these rules and the acts is something which is the second dimension of it. The third, which is probably more this thing why we should be concerned about it, what is that they are fishing in India about? What is that type of an information? We have got a joint cyber technical forum between the two countries. When we started it, it was all with good intentions. In 2006, we were forced to send one of the US diplomat back because she tried to get some of our people who were involved and were working together to be doing certain things which were detrimental to the India's security.
We're going to discuss that in a minute. Let me just move on.
So these are the areas of concern. That is why we are concerned. Now, the point is this, that I take a point that yes, every country has got to be extremely vigilant about its security interests, about what's happening world over. Probably after post-Pokhran, they did develop their substantial technical capabilities to monitor India. We should be able to develop the defeat system. If we are unable to do it, that is our failure and we couldn't blame them. That why are you trying to this thing on it? I think the part of the responsibility lies on us to protect our legitimacy.
We're going to discuss that. Let me just go to Dr. Rajamohan. Raj, what is wrong if the US doesn't want to be blindsided on India's nuclear program or space program or DRDO developments? And also under the Hyde Act, in any case, the US administration is obliged to inform Congress every year about what they think India has done in the field of nuclear related matters. So actually there's a mandate for them to find out things which may not be available over ground, and you may need surveillance and espionage.
I think, Bharat, there's a problem. I think if we make it too much India-centered and what are they trying to get from us kind of an approach. If you look at it, I think two interesting reactions to this. One was from the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, when he was asked about this. Our Foreign Office expressed surprise and we're going to take it up. And what Putin said was, look, it's very predictable. We know exactly what they're doing. And this is what a civilized state would do to deal with terrorism at home and abroad. This is Comrade Putin's response to the reaction. Second, I think far more interesting in our obsession with what are they trying to steal from us. We've forgotten the real play is between Washington and Beijing. In fact, the fact that Mr. Snowden has surfaced in Hong Kong under the Chinese protection, that if you see the last 6 months, the Americans had stepped up the campaign to say, Chinese are hacking into my computers. Now, if you see the Chinese press in the last 2 days.
But how come China is not in the top 5 then?
No, this is what I think is, what you get is not the full information. I mean, there's only one part. Look, it's not what you get. Look, if you look at terrorism, obviously you're looking at Pakistan, Egypt and India and those kind of places. But the real fight is about hacking each other's military secrets, which is much bigger play.
Okay.
That the Chinese, what the Chinese are saying is, look, you've been telling me I'm spying on you. The Chinese have been warning that all these days, we know what you are doing to me. And the fact that we get, and in fact, I won't rule it out. Mr. Snowden is a Chinese spy or is being manipulated by the Chinese. So there's much bigger play than our nuclear program, our telephone conversations. Those are important issues.
But there's a power play for us. Why should we be bothered about US-China thing more than
why we should be bothered is the play is much bigger than the thing Mr. Doval was saying. They're trying to catch some secrets from India. This is much bigger. There's publicly available information and technology today where states are penetrating each other's domestic space in dramatic new forms.
Okay, we're going to come to that. We're going to come to that. We need to take a break at this juncture. We'll continue with this interesting discussion after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are discussing the implications of the US cyber spying program. Mr. Doval, Raj was saying that states are penetrating each other and they need to know what's happening in their domestic spheres. Now, I'll give you 2 or 3 examples which you are well aware of. You yourself mentioned how the Americans penetrated the National Security Council Secretariat and subverted an individual there. Then there was the case of Ravinder Singh, a member of our external intelligence agency, RNAW. He was a US agent. When he was under surveillance, they helped him escape from India, and apparently he's living in luxury in Virginia. Then there was a case in your own organization in the Intelligence Bureau earlier where the number 2 man, Ratan Sehgal, was arrested by IB's own counter-espionage unit while he was meeting a CIA officer. Now, there have been many other incidents, I'm sure, which go unreported. Now, despite all this, our intelligence cooperation, terrorism, counter-terrorism cooperation, cybersecurity cooperation with USA continues. Now, is it because we gain more by cooperation than by not cooperating with them? Or is it because each time we protest, they give us assurances which we tend to believe?
You know, I can deal with your question at two levels. One is purely a matter of principle, which you have said that, well, probably it's not expected of a country, which is we are strategic partners, it's a fellow democracy. The other is taking a more practical view of the things that it happens in this profession, in this business. Americans or any country trying to gain information or access into your systems is probably understandable. And the other countries also trying to develop the same capabilities is also their right. If you are caught, it is bad, and you have got to this thing. So I will say that it's all right. No, that's right, because you know, and if you have got developed the technologies, if you have got the capabilities, good enough.
No, my question was that this cooperation continues because we probably stand to gain more by the cooperation.
Now the point, that is exactly the point I was coming to. Is this cooperation useful? I will say yes, it is useful, despite the fact that is we feel betrayed at times. We feel that they have done the things which they need not and they should not have done, and probably we have got many other forums. There is a large amount of things that we discussed during these forums, in which we have got common interests.
Okay, now let me go to you, Ambassador Ronen. And you know, let's take the case of terrorism. We are threatened by the same groups which threaten the West, at least some of the same groups.
Yes.
So what is the level of intelligence sharing about these activities of these groups? If you take the Headley case, which is being used by the US to justify this large-scale cyber spying, the impression in India is that perhaps the Mumbai attacks could have been prevented if the US had given us timely information about Headley's activities.
I think we are jumping to conclusions. One is that, you know, for instance, when you say targeting, and I pointed out right in the beginning, you have data supposedly for 30 days, only 30 days, one period.
I'm not on number 5 now. I'm merely saying that there are terrorist groups which target India, which also target the West. And the West is monitoring them. Do they share, does America share information with us?
One is, let me just, without going into details, because it will not be fair of me to go into details, because I'm not supposed to reveal the extent to which what we know, and this is not certainly the forum for it in public forums. But let me just say that there are areas of concern. There's always, you know, I mean, two parties. One is, you might say, wanting to find out more, and one is to cooperate. So these things go in parallel. But a degree of confidence is necessary. That means when you cooperate, so whether it's a Rabinder Singh case or other cases, they have undermined confidence. It's certainly there. And this was a pattern till around 2007, when I was there. In 2007, there was, and also Pakistan tended to be treated in a separate, almost insulated shell of its own. And the extent to which our cooperation was there, it was more, I mean, they were much more open, let's say, on the China part or other parts than with Pakistan. But since 2007, it has changed, and the realization has come, and it came, it may not be, I'm not putting roughly a date which may not be fully accurate, but that the threats are common. And it's not just Al-Qaeda. For instance, the focus on the LET. And those came out much more openly in the Mumbai attacks, where the targets were not just the Indian infidels, but the Americans and the Jewish. So going back to the founding of the LET by the Pakistani army, you know, when you had to ceremonially, and before entering a camp, wipe your feet, not just on the Indian tricolor, but the Stars and Stripes and the Star of David. So that came home in a strong manner. So we did benefit. Curiously, we benefited more. You might say the principal interlocutor was not so much the external agency, that's the CIA, but the FBI. That was also because of their domestic surveillance. So this is a major issue. Yeah. The issue there, and I was there during the amendments to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, where Bush, for instance, said that, look, you'll have to give immunity from legal action to US companies who cooperate. What legal immunity? Because of domestic situation.
So there is cooperation today, you think?
No, so there is cooperation, and the fact is, without going into detail, let me tell you that if you talk about international cooperation, we have got more from the United States, in this particular case, let's say in Bombay, than we have with the rest of the world combined.
Okay, so that's good to hear. But
I think
Raja,
I'd like to intervene a bit. Since I know it and
Yeah,
the
but
exchange,
quickly,
and
I
things
want
like
to
that,
move
I
to
think
Rajamohan. Yeah.
that probably we have gained relatively much less than what we have given. I also feel that it is very useful. It is not only about the input which are given in these talks or in these intelligence levels, this thing, there are many other things. The responses, the technology upgradation, the systems, the good practices and others. But there is a lot that the Americans could have done and should be
Which they
able to
have not
do
done.
if we have to fight against terrorism and so many other things which are of our common interest.
Okay, Raja, I wanted to ask you a slightly different question. There's an impression that India is not prepared to prevent cyber attacks, that we don't have the technical capability. For example, if you take the case of the opposition that comes to Chinese telecom companies, don't buy equipment from them, it might have bugs, it might have malware, we don't know how to test it. We are often seeking American forensic help for terrorist attacks, voice over internet protocols, voice recognition software or technologies. What does India need to do to develop the capability, be self-sufficient in this?
I think the first thing is to get rid of this attitude that somehow when somebody does spy on us, it's some kind of a hostile act.
Yeah.
The question is, how much capability do you have to spy on others? I mean, that is the central
Or,
question.
or also prevent others
exactly.
from
So
doing
there's a defense element, there's an offensive element. Now, spying goes back to origins of statecraft. I mean, see Kautilya's Arthashastra. I mean, almost an indecent focus on how far should you go in spying on your own citizens, because it is not, and on your adversary or even friendly states. Now, that is part of life, international life, that we must start there. Second, that even at the height of the Cold War, and Americans and Russians were doing spying of an extraordinary range, they still kept an engagement. They were in contact. When somebody is caught, his boy is caught, you will exchange it for your boy. So this is part of managing the intelligence system. What has changed in the last few years is the quality of technology and the amount of information that is today available in the cyber domain. This requires new norms to be maintained. But our typical temptation is to take the moral approach. Oh, we offer disarmament, non-discriminatory, negotiate, blah, 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 which is, we already
All right.
No, let me finish. Thing is, if we don't have the capability, and I don't know how much we have, but it's clearly the scale that has been revealed in this report, the American capabilities and the Chinese capabilities, my sense is we got a long way to go. And we need to expand our intelligence system, modernize it, bringing it to the electronic age. I think there's much work to be done. But there's no public communication from the government at all.
We need to take a break at this point. We need a break at this point. We'll be back again with this interesting discussion after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are discussing the implications of the US cyber spying program for India. Ambassador Sen, as Raj was saying that, intelligence gathering is a way of life. And when it comes to intelligence gathering, I suppose there are no friends. So while India's strategic ties with America can keep improving and our political exchanges can keep going, the hardcore mandate of the security agencies of the two countries, I suppose, doesn't change.
No, I think it can change,
And should it change?
No, I think, there have been changes also, and I noticed it also. It is not an ideal situation right now. For instance, these things, when changes occur, they don't occur at sharp angles. Like, for instance, when I pointed out, I noticed the change in 2007. It's not that it, that it moves at sharp angles. These things tend to move in more or less in parabolic curves. It's all relative to what it was yesterday. For instance, when I was in Russia at that time after Pokhran, that was referred to, the anger which was there, palpable anger, the worst reception which we got was, one of the worst reactions was not from the Americans, it was from the Russians at that time, was that had they been duped? Why were they caught flat-footed? So we have to remember this, and some of this gets greater play because of, whether we are allies or not, or, you take the case of Israel, you can't have a closer ally than between Israel and the United States. But to say that there's no espionage, it's not correct. So, we shouldn't jump to conclusions, and there are no absolutes in this. I can give lots of examples. I don't want to cite examples.
No, point well taken.
I don't want to cite examples because I had dealt not just with one agency, which is on counter intelligence, but with all other agencies.
Okay. Mr. Doval, let me ask you this. So espionage will continue, but is there a level playing field? Can there be a level playing field with America? Because doesn't US have the home advantage that all the internet companies are based on its soil?
Actually, you're perfectly right. I think you have taken this thing. That is all countries will engage in these activities for the legitimate purposes, and they are not necessarily hostile acts. But what we expect from United States, that as a strategic partner, as the democracies, there is no conflictual interest in the strategic terms and others, that is the level of cooperation between the agencies of the two countries is not optimum. We are not beneficiaries to that extent what America is capable of sharing with us without undermining its own interests. Whereas,
No, that point you've already made. What I'm asking is, if we can never reach that same level of espionage as the US when it comes to cyber spying, because of the advantage they have.
oh yes, I think that is true, because they have got the home advantage and the relationship that they have developed with Google's and Yahoo's and all other American companies which actually are in control of many things. And therefore, we probably have to have some type of Information Technology Act already provided. Some of the rules have been amended in 2011. Some others are being contemplated, where certain types of protections and certain types of actions, where the privacy of the people are this thing that people are able to get protection. I won't like to say that what Chinese are doing, we should be imitating that. That is not correct. But they cannot get a free access which can be used by our adversaries to our advantage.
Okay, but Raj, on China, you've talked about China earlier. Now, do you think that all US fulminations against China, they were hypocritical, considering that they were exactly doing what they were accusing the Chinese of doing, but on a much larger scale?
No, exactly. That's exactly. It is hypocrisy is what the Chinese are saying. And the Russians are saying that, look, you talk about democracy, internal liberty, therefore don't accuse me of spying on my citizens. So look, this is part of the game, I think the problem is to assume there is level playing field. There'll never be a level playing field. There'll never be a level playing field between India and Sri Lanka. There'll never be a level playing field between America and India. Now, all states are not created equal, just as all human beings are not created equal. We can sit in the UN and non-aligned movement and say these things. But the fact is, the question is how much capabilities can you bring to the table? Now, what the Chinese have done in 20 years is to contest the American primacy in the electronic domain by creating expansive, look, today my Gmail, everybody knows all our Gmail accounts are watched by our Chinese friends. I'm sure the Americans are doing the same thing. So today the Chinese have adapted to a new technological environment and trying to contest with the Americans for domination of the space. Now, for us, you can keep giving speeches and passing domestic laws. They're useful to protect your citizens, but it won't help you with the international system. So the question is, can we create capabilities? Why isn't India has talked about a cyber command? Why isn't it has created a cyber command? No, this is not, nobody, Americans are not stopping you, Chinese are not stopping you. Now, the government has not said a word. It says we were doing everything right. You guys, be rest assured we're doing all that is necessary. Where is the debate? Where is the capacity that has been created to say India will do what others are doing? I'm not saying just stay up with the Joneses.
Do we have the capacity
Yes,
to do?
I can definitely say that we have gone a long way in last 3.5, last 4 years. A lot of work has been done. But what you are talking about, the cyber warriors or the capacity for that, that is basically
But
the military.
you
About
can't
the
create
electronic warfare system
a national
and the
counter-terrorism center. How will you create a cyber command?
No. Counter-terrorism center probably doesn't have much to do on that count. What he's talking about is probably what we are talking about, the digitalized war of these things. In the theaters, where probably the informatics and these things will be controlled and will be this thing in the weapon systems and control of the radar.
So we are capable of doing it.
We have taken a lot of measures on that. I do not know whether we are.
We are running out of
but
time.
it is not that what the probably common perception is, that we have got no technological capabilities where India.
If somebody in the parliament, at least, close like Americans do in the Select Intelligence Committee. But where is there's no sharing of information?
Oh yes,
with the
there
public
is no
at all.
sharing, and I think we have to develop.
But is that good or bad? It's probably good that people don't know what capabilities you have.
That's
But,
right.
but you
That
can't
is
rely on the
precisely
government telling you, look, I'm doing it all right. You don't need to know. I mean, but that's not the way.
Okay, there should be some accountability somewhere. Now, last question to you. Now, we've discussed as if, US was a great enemy. US is not an enemy of India. It's a great friend of India. So, would it be right to say that all their espionage activities in India, cyber spying or whatever, is really not a hostile activity? Let's say in relation to what they would be doing in China, what they would be doing in Iran, what they would be doing in Pakistan.
Well, I don't think we should look at it in those terms. I think we have to be a little bit more clinical, whether it's a friendly act or unfriendly act. I think America will, or for that matter, any other country, will do what it thinks is in its own interest.
All right.
We should. To one extent, you're right. In some extent, what is happening is that, as I was saying with the reference to the Lashkar-e-Taiba, for instance, the attitudes were different. That this is not, our enemy. Our principal is Al Qaeda.
So there are
these-
points of
So-
convergence and points of divergence.
So what's happening is the points of convergence are increasing. So to that extent,
Yeah,
you'd have you'll have less of conflict of interest.
Okay.
But this will remain, and it depends on how we play it. To what extent we can be of use to them also. It's a
Okay,
two-way
okay,
traffic.
okay.
So to the extent
yeah.
we develop our capabilities, it'll be better.
Right. We are running out of time. In fact, we have run out of time. So I'd like to thank all of you, Ambassador Ronen Sen, Mr. Ajit Doval, Dr. Rajamohan, for coming here and analyzing this issue for us. And I hope we'll see you again in our studios soon. With that, we come to the end of this program. We'll be back again next week with another interesting issue. Till then, goodbye.